Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark, and of course, we have Mr. Matt today, but we're very fortunate to have a special guest, and that, my friends, is Mr. Kevin Boles, the manager of the Montgomery Biscuits, the Double-A team for the Tampa Bay organization, the Rays, I should say. And we're glad to have you here. How you doing today, Kevin?
Good, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'll just say something real quick the other day. I live here in the Tampa Bay area, and I was driving down to Sarasota to go to St. Armand's Circle down there, and I couldn't help but realize I'm passing Cardinal Mooney High School. And I'm thinking, I think I remember somebody who went there and went to USF. And that's you, isn't it, sir?
Long time ago. Long time ago, yeah. But I'm sure the area's changed quite a bit. But I had some great memories there. It was a great place to grow up.
Well, I want to thank you for, like I said, being with us here today. And Matt, I know we're going to talk about a few things, and I'm looking to Kevin, with your time here. You've actually been managing for like around 25 years at this point, haven't you?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time. A lot of games, a lot of interesting baseball, a lot of things that you see on the field, and very lucky. You have a dream career and be able to last this long. It's especially with the way the game's changed. It's definitely a blessing.
Well, Matt, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started with some of this.
Yeah. So one of the first questions we had, like you went through a long baseball career, like we were talking about, and I have to ask, like, I can only imagine what that first game of managing was like. Like when you first are in charge, you're the man, you're the one everybody looks to. How did that first game managing feel, and what do you remember about it?
Well, I knew that I was lucky because we did instructional ball. When I was a player coach with the Cubs, Carmelo Martinez gave me the responsibility for about 20 games to coach third base. And he would let me run the offense at times. And so I had some experience in that regard. But once you're in charge of the team, it's a little bit different animal. And the first team that I was ever fortunate enough to manage had two special players. One's definitely going to be a Hall of Fame type player, and the other one was a Gold Glover and an All-Star, and they were batting 3 and 4 in the lineup with Miguel Cabrera and Adrian Gonzalez. So you're looking at these guys, and you're not that much older than them. I think I was 24 at the time, but I realized how hard it was because my professional career was short. And it helped me develop a lot of patience. But filling out that first lineup and seeing those guys in that lineup, it was you could just dream about the future.
Right. And there's a difference between being a part of personalities, right? A wide variety of personalities as a player, and then having to manage those wide array of personalities as a manager. Mm-hmm. So what were the tools that you didn't have that you had to learn on the fly as you first started digging into more of the, the personnel issues, I guess?
I think it's changed so much. Now there's so many different aspects that you really have to study on. But back then, I think it was patience. Even though that I wasn't a good player, at first when you come out, you want to make sure that you're organized and disciplined and firm with the guys because, again, they're looking for somebody to lead them. And a lot of players, it's tough because they come from different backgrounds and the standards that they had. Once you get to pro ball, it's a little bit different than amateur ball. Right. And so just establishing the standards of what the organization wants as far as teaching, and also to make sure that you're loyal, that you follow through on everything because, you see a lot of young staff members, they try to get close with the players. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing. It's there. You can get close to a degree, but there has to be some separation, and you always got to keep the organization at first. And I think that growing up in the background that I had, that was an easier thing than most coaches go through.
Well, you talk about the background because you had a mentor in the house, didn't you?
Yeah, my father, John Boles, he was terrific, and still to this day, he's one of the best baseball men, if not the best. I call him every day. We talk every day. And he's retired now, but I always bounce things off of him, even though that I've had some experience now. Just his wisdom and the way that he went about his business and how he was always just direct with players. And, it seems like every week I run into somebody that says, hey, tell your father hello. He's the one that helped me out with my career, and I always appreciated his honesty. And I just try to follow suit with that.
Well, that's something I know what all he did with the Marlins, and I think also with you with the Gulf League. I can't remember what is the Florida Gulf League. What's the correct?
Gulf League? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I can never get it right because there's the
They've
complex
all
league, the
changed
Florida
now. That's all
complex
right.
league, and
Yeah, they've
what.
got them all now. Yeah.
No, but that must have been something. I can only imagine working with some of those youngsters then too. And I know you've given us a little bit of what that vision like was when you first started with that Cubs organization with coaching. It One of the things I always think about with managers and players is you better like to travel. You better enjoy
Yeah.
traveling because quite often, one, you're traveling with your team to different locations, but quite often in a career, there's different opportunities that you're finding. And what was one of the most exciting places that you've the teams that you worked with over the years?
Well, I was with the Boston Red Sox for 11 years, and that was a lot of fun. And Pawtucket obviously it doesn't exist anymore. The team moved to Worcester. That was a great place to develop players because it was 45 minutes to an hour outside of Boston. If the Red Sox had an off day, the media attention that the young players got there, we'd have 10 to 15 people from the Boston media. And so they always called it the 31st Major League team. And that was a fun place, even though it was in a smaller town. The fans came out, and we had some young players that came through that system in those 5 years. And we're ended up able to win a couple World Series with those players. And but just to see the future of how that was an exciting time.
You think
And
that extra attention and the extra crowds or the extra focus really helps prepare them for, the extra attention they get at the major league level?
Yeah, it's necessary actually if you can get it, and that in playoff experience, if you can develop winners, but get them playoff experience and be in the playoff hunt throughout the year. Nobody wants to be. I know they always talk about development, but what are you actually developing? And if you're looking to win championships, you want to develop winners. And we were very successful in that regard. We had some special talent that came through. The names are just off the charts, and these guys have had great careers and. The best is yet to come with some of them. Some of them have turned into superstars.
That leads into a question though, like how do you make that balance between development because you want to put players in pressure situations to develop and winning. So I know there's some calls more than likely, especially at your level at double A, where those players are making that transition, sometimes from points where they're struggling into trying to get them to believe in themselves and have that success in those tough situations. So how do you balance that?
I think the biggest thing from the start of this season, we always talk about the players do not be a front runner in your own careers, that you're going to have months, and hopefully it's shorter term, but you're going to have times where this is going to be a struggle and you're going to find out what adjustments you need to make. But every time that there's a failure out on the field, it's also an opportunity. And guys need to look at that. Also, nobody's going to feel sorry for these players. It's dog eat dog. It really is. I mean, it's if you're going to become a major league ball player, you've got to have thick skin and you have to be able to handle the media. You have to know when to deflect. And as far as not reading it, you can find anything you want, good or bad, on yourself if you look hard enough. And so I think the main thing is just focusing day to day on what they're doing, but to also keep the big picture in mind and to give themselves a little bit of credit. Sometimes this is not an easy game, and just to make sure that they understand that how they come out of the failures, that's how they're going to get to the big leagues.
I know I always think of double A as kind of like the cutting block.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming in here, man. You're either going to make it or not. I mean, I think of AAA is sometimes just the way station to the majors, and people coming up and down in there. But in order to even get into that portal, to get in that pipeline, you have got to make it at double A. And this is your chance to shine. This is your chance to get rid of whatever baggage or difficulties you're experiencing on the field or at the bat. And I don't know. Do you see it that way, or is that a simplification?
No, it definitely is a separator. And now that they've cut the levels, this is where the problem has come in, is that guys are getting to double A. Either we have older players that 10 years ago, you wouldn't see 26, 27-year-olds in double A. It was very rare. And now you see quite a bit, especially out of the bullpens and the pitching staffs, you'll see some older arms. So it's kind of a modified triple A in that regard. But a lot of these young players are getting here a little bit too quick. I don't think they have enough at bats. They don't have enough innings pitched, and they're getting to these levels a little bit sooner than and routines. I mean, just teaching guys routines and getting those established in the first couple of years. Some of that time has been shortened quite a bit, professionalizing players. But double A is when it starts to separate. I've always said to the players, if you can get yourself into a triple A locker room, all bets are off. It doesn't matter about prospect status, signing bonus. None of that matters. It is just all about major league inventory. And if you can get yourself into a triple A clubhouse, you got a chance. And so, again, that's not the end goal, is just to get to the triple A clubhouse, but it's a great starting point because things happen quick up at the big leagues and you can find yourself in that position.
Right. And on that note, like, what would you say that we don't see on the stat sheet that you notice in young players that tells you more about them as a player and having that potential to make the jump to AAA?
Well, the biggest thing is, number one, consistency. They're not going to have it yet. They may be 50, 60% of the time there. But boy, you can't sell short intelligence. If you have an intelligent player and a guy that can make adjustments, a guy that's consistent coming into the ballpark every day. We have a kid here named Homer Bush Jr. And obviously has bloodlines, but the way this kid comes in every single day, he's a true professional. He runs out every ball. His work ethic is terrific, and you know what you're getting every day. He's reliable. And so as far as with these players, we're looking for that. That's the type of reliability, whether they're hitting a 5-3 ground out or they're chasing a double, their times are the same. They're just going after it the right way. And they're just consistent as far as their makeup. And but the intelligence is a huge factor on whether or not a guy can be a big leaguer.
That's kind of an intriguing point because I know managers love predictability, right? They don't want things to be unpredictable as much as possible. And if they know what they're going to get from a player, they're going to appreciate that. So that kind of leads into the other question is, you guys, the Rays in general, made a lot of significant trades that impacted your team. Like, and you mentioned Homer Bush Jr. There was a whole bunch of other ones. I'll just read them quickly. There's Jackson Baumister, Ty Cummings, Jacob Waters, Will Simpson, Matthew Etzel, Brody Hopkins. Like, a lot of guys were brought into the organization. And I know the Rays have a lot of success in improving those post-trade. So what have you seen from that glut of players outside of Bush Jr. that kind of stick out in your opinion?
Very talented group, but there's an adjustment period. There's being a part of telling players when they're traded, going to other organizations. It's a tough deal. I don't think people appreciate how mentally challenging that is. Even if you're leaving a situation maybe that you weren't too happy with your old organization, a lot of these guys, every one of them pretty much speaks highly of their organizations, and so learning a whole fresh new set of faces, staff members, front office. It's a challenge for these players. And so you have to give them a little bit of a grace period. So some of the players that we've had, they haven't performed as well as they'd like. Others have performed very well. But you got to give them a little bit more time because that settling in period, it does matter and it exists.
Right. And yeah, it's a great point. And I agree with you that I don't think people they put enough of a leeway on those players to actually make the transition. There's two guys that stand out to me this season watching the Biscuits that I think have made a significant jump or put their names a little bit higher in terms of the thought process of making that jump to AAA. And they're Duncan David and Cooper Kinney. Can you actually talk a little bit about what they've excelled in this year?
Duncan is a great example of getting comfortable. He came to us last year and things were fast for him. His stuff wasn't as good. He was probably sitting 91, 92. His fastball has upticked to 94 and at times mid 90s. But the pitch ability and the way that he goes about his business, he has settled in. He throws a lot of strikes. That's another thing too. You'll notice in the game today, there's a lot of walks and there's a lot of strikeouts, and it's not a fun game to watch at times. And so when you see Duncan command the zone the way he does, and utilize a mix, and he maintains a tempo, he's really come a long way. He is a completely different pitcher than when he arrived here last year. And I think a lot of that is credit to his work, but also getting a chance to settle in. Cooper Kinney can hit. He can flat out hit. Obviously, he's had some injuries in the past, so he's missed some time. But he's played some second base, third base. I don't know defensively where he ends up. Health is going to play a part in that. But this is definitely a chance to be a impact bat at the major league level. He has it. And knowledge of the strike zone, can work tall fields. He's another guy that's consistent like Homer Bush Jr. You're going to get to the same times to first base every time. Plays hard, plays the game the right way. But this is a chance. He has a chance to be an offensive threat at the major league somewhere down the road.
Absolutely agree. I see him a lot, like in terms of how he's being used on the field. I see him a lot like Tanner Murray, who's probably has a similar role in AAA. So it's just great to see people having great seasons after, like you mentioned, all the injuries he's. And I always heard from all the outlets and everything I've seen, how great his potential was. So it's nice to see it actually come through. Now, on the flip side, we know the transition from A plus to AA is often the toughest one for players. And one of your guys is going through it right now in terms of Braden Taylor. So what can you tell us about his progress this year?
He's struggling right now. He's played pretty solid defense at third base. He's been able to separate, but at the plate, he's not where he wants to be. And he understands that. It's not about work. It's not about attention to detail. There's some adjustments, though, that he's going to need to make, whether it's with his approach, strike zone management. There are some mechanical things, too. And, not to say that he's not open to it, but it's hard for a guy that's had as much success that he's had, and it's worked for him this whole time, to now finally starting to hit a few bumps in the road and to go, okay, where are we at and how are we going to evaluate this thing? And our guys are on it. Our hitting department, they're on it. Braden's on it. He wants to do well. He wants to get there. But there are some adjustments he's going to need to make. But the thing that I like about him is that he's tough and he goes about his business the right way. If he's not perfect, it's hard when you go through something like this. But I think he'll be better off down the road. I'd rather see him struggle here than struggle his first time at the big leagues.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't have anything to fall back on where he's never gone through it. So this has actually been a good thing for him.
Agreed. I think Paul Goldschmidt is a good example of somebody that's had to reinvent his entire approach at the plate and really had a lot of success from it. And you've seen other guys do it, Matt Carpenter, a whole bunch of other players that have had to make those adjustments because the league will always adjust to you and expose your weaknesses. So
yeah, with him, I don't think he needs to reinvent. I don't want to, describe it that way. There are adjustments though that need to be made. I'd love to see him, eventually get a little bit taller in his stance. I think he gets a little wide, gets a little spread out. I'm getting to the mechanics of the hitting stuff, but I'm going there. Love to see him get a little taller. Love to see him create a little bit more leverage and get on playing with the ball. And our guys are working on it though, and we have all the tools. And Paul Roselle does a great job with the hitting, the patience he shows and the way he goes about it. He's been terrific here. Our hitting department's been great, and he's one of the guys that we're definitely target. We're looking for better things coming forward.
So what would you say, like, and I know the Rays, from what I can tell, as somebody that monitors the Rays very closely, it seems like in 2021, they made a decision draft-wise to draft a lot of hitters early in the draft, sit back and draft a lot of pitchers later on. So in your opinion, has that had an impact in terms, because you're dealing with a lot of the players that have come from that now, has it made a difference in terms of the pitching staffs you're using and like the quality of players that you're seeing on the field in a lineup?
Yeah, we've seen some quality hitters come through, and it's been fun. Last year it was Chandler Simpson, Carson Williams, those type of players that you watch. Trey Morgan came through, and now we've got Xavier Isaac, Braden Taylor, we've got this Cooper Kinney. It's before my time as far as where they were drafting hitters, but also, I hate to say it and sound like a mercenary, but we've traded for a lot of these guys, and we've got guys that, again, I'm not playing mini GM, but when you have this many potential bats, people are going to want those guys, and so they do have major league value, and so I think that they've targeted the right guys, the makeup of these guys, the talent level. On the pitching side, again, we've acquired some guys in trades. Hopkins is one of the guys that that he's really stood out here. And again, he hasn't been pitching very long, but if we get this one right, he's got a chance to be pretty special. So there's a lot to work on, but the raw stuff that he has and the athleticism, that's one of the guys that really stands out on the pitching side.
I'll ask you just about one more player because I know he's on IL this year and we're not going to get to enjoy him early on, hoping that at some point he does return healthy. But Yonel Curet, what can you tell us about his electricity? Because to me, stuff wise, he may have the best stuff of the minors in terms of the Rays system.
Yeah, he has a power arm. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what his role is though. It's tricky because with the health issues, you may want to keep him on a starting rotation because it's a schedule instead of throwing him in the bullpen. I think that with his profile, though, he has versatility where he could do both. Obviously, we're looking to develop starters. Number one, every organization is trying to do that. But at the very least, this could be a power arm out of the bullpen. He needs to command better. Another thing, too, when we saw him come up last year, after a couple of innings, he'd lose command and the stamina would go down a little bit. So I don't know if that's a precursor to what's going forward. But number one, we need to get him healthy. But it is a power arm with power stuff, and when he's healthy, it's pretty exciting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Man, I want to bring up a question you posted to me earlier today. I wanted to hear more about it, and that was with the rule changes that often like Double A have to contend with or deal with, or I should say, be introduced to. And one of those was the new stickier ball. Can you address that or some of the other changes?
As far as a stickier ball, we don't have that.
Oh, my
Yeah,
bad.
we don't have that. The balls that we get, they get rubbed up just regular. So, and if there's a sticky substance on them, we don't have that. I mean, they don't feel any different at this point. So, but you got to rub them up because if they're fresh out of the box, yeah, they're slick. So
Yeah.
you got to make sure that look, everybody talks about these things, the increase the spin rates and everything else and the grip. I'd rather, with the amount of velocity that's coming out of these guys' hand, I'd rather them get a few more RPMs or, and have sharper stuff, but they could command it
Yeah.
because you see guys throwing 98 to 100 and the ball comes out of their hand. This has gotten a little bit dangerous and it always has been. I mean, there's always a risk, but I'd rather see guys be able to grip the ball a little extra. So that stuff, as far as being able to have a little tackiness on their hand, that doesn't bother me at all. I'd rather have that actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the safety issue of that, as well. I mean, one, it's great to see a pitcher who can throw that and still have command because
Yeah.
sometimes you see that ball go and you go, good Lord, somebody could have got killed with that pitch.
Yeah.
But no, I hope that that's just I misread that, Matt. I was thinking that MLB had put something new out there with that.
Right. I
Yeah.
think they
Go
might have
ahead.
they
Sorry,
might have
Matt.
tried it at some point. I'm not sure if it was in both leagues. I thought it was only the Southern League that it had
Mm.
mentioned, but it might have been erroneous in terms of information, and it might be in the other league. So yeah, is there a rule change though that you really think has benefited or that they are looking to test in the future in Double A?
I don't know if they're going to test it here, but boy, I would sure love to see some automated zones.
Mhm.
And I know that is not a popular topic. Personally, I deal with the catchers, and
Yeah.
so the art of receiving and framing and whatever you want to call it, you know, getting strikes, moving the ball, that's going to be a lost art. But the difference is now this is different with Major League Baseball, and nobody really talks about this with all the gambling that's going on now. There's gambling I mean, it's promoted now. It's part of our culture. You would think that we want to get it right. And so it's a tall task as far as the strike zones. Guys are throwing at 98 to 102 miles an hour, and it's consistent. That's hard to judge. That's hard to, and be, you know, pretty good at it. And then you have the breaking stuff that they have. They're changing eye levels. And you watch the major league hitters, they still have a real good idea of the strike zone. It's pretty impressive what those guys can do. But with the amount of gambling that's going on, I think people will eventually get to a point where they just want the call right.
Right.
And they just strikes are strikes, balls are balls. Now that will change the catching position. It'll be a guy that can throw a little bit and block, but it's going to be an offensive force. I think that it'll change the profile of the catching position. But I think that the automated zone, I would rather see it right than see it put into somebody else's hands and want the players to to decide who the champions are.
I could not agree more. I think
It's not popular. I'm sure maybe I'll
well,
get a phone call, but I don't care. It's just the way it is. It needs to be correct.
One of my pet peeves was watching a young player come up or a young pitcher and going up against a veteran. The veteran gets all the calls, the young guy doesn't, and you never see the young guy again. You're
Yeah.
like, what happened? You got all, and it's mind numbing. It doesn't make any sense to ruin somebody's career. He might be the only start he ever gets, and then you're sending him down, even though he threw more strikes than it showed. Yeah.
Well, and
Uh,
people don't realize how hard it is for the umpires. This is hard stuff. The way that how talented these players are, and they've always been talented, but it's and that's where I've got a soft spot for the umpires a little bit on this one too, because it's important to them to have the strike zone and to run a game and do these things. So they've had some things taken away from them, but on the flip side of that, again, it's just people want it correct, people want it right, but I don't think people realize how tough. You see all these things that people get on the umpires quite a bit. Boy, get back there and see what this is like. I mean, I've stood behind our guys in bullpens and stuff. It's a different animal these days.
Yeah.
Speaking of the umpires, though, have you ever been ejected? And if so, what was it for?
Oh, yeah, I'm good for 5 a year. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And I usually have to ask to get thrown out. I don't, I've never made a YouTube video or anything to rip the base out or throw my hat or anything or kick dirt on home plate. I usually just say, okay, what do you have? We talk about it, and then I'll say, okay, you probably need to throw me out here because you boxed me in, and I got to have credibility with the team. And so I also don't believe in getting
Love
thrown
that.
out to motivate your team. I
Yeah.
don't I don't believe in that. If you have to motivate your team by getting thrown out, you're probably not doing a good job. You're not leading properly. So I usually ask them, and it's funny, this last ejection I had, I said, well, you're gonna have to throw me out. And he goes, well, don't you want to get animated or anything? I said, no. I said, no, I'm not gonna fake it. I said, I'm check the replay after the game. I'll check it. And I said, if you're right, I'll tell you right tomorrow at home plate.
Right.
And so, yeah, but sometimes you have some conversations out there that, and then there's sometimes where you really, it's real and you go, come on, this needs to get better. But I'm good for about one a month. I'm 5 a year. And, it's better to, you got to keep the players in the game.
Yeah.
They need to develop. And so, I'll jump on that one. And as long as the players stay in the game, that's what's important.
Agreed.
Wow. Yeah. You brought up the whole thing about being able to have the zone where I was wondering more and more as we came up with the clocks and everything else to boot. And I thought, how many more things are we going to give the umpire to think about and still do their critical job?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm for the automated strike zone. Part of me hates to see that go because I thought it's an art, it's a craft of the catcher to art of deception, if you will, to be a magician with the umpire behind them. But I think I'd rather have the calls right. And as you pointed out, Matt, I hate the idea of that some, youngsters coming up there and they're not getting the break that a veteran's going to. It reminds me of, in boxing, whoever was the champion, they got the edge in whatever bout was being fought. So anyway, yeah, I've slowly come along. It took me a while to come along with Matt on that one.
It's all good. I'm new school, I guess. I don't know.
You saying something about my age, buddy?
Hey, whatever makes me feel young. That's all I'm saying. I'm not as young as I used to be, so too many people look at me and think old man. So I'm glad when I can feel a little younger in the room. Although I'll say Kevin doesn't look his age. He's got way too much sun compared to me.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
got the sunglasses.
we work outside in the heat quite a bit, so it's no, these guys keep me young, that's for sure.
That's awesome. So looking forward, are you looking to make the jump into AAA managing? Are you looking to MLB, get back in a role of some sort? Like what are your goals professionally?
To produce the next Chandler Simpsons, that's the goal. It's about the players, hopefully Carson Williams, Tanner Murray's, these guys, they can help our major league club win games. When you're younger, you think of timetables and everything else. I've done every level, including the big leagues, been a coordinator. And then there comes a point in time where you're like, okay, what's my role this year? And just try to be, this year it's a AA manager, be the best AA manager in baseball and have the players the most prepared. And when you take it that way, you don't worry about yourself. And I assume everybody wants to be in the big leagues. I get that. It's where everybody wants to be, but I don't look at it that way. If somebody recognizes that I could do a good job and maybe help them on a major league staff, that's fine. But I've done AAA. Like I said, I've done them all.
Right.
So you know, whatever the role is, I'm just happy that I can continue to work in baseball, and it's been fun.
Well, that answers my question because I was going to ask what keeps you fired up about managing. That pretty much answers all of that in a nutshell. I know the producing players is so are there other than Chandler Simpson, which I know was a great success story, and I love the tools that he's bringing back into Major League Baseball. I'm a huge fan of his. Mark's heard me talk about him for a few years, and I think there's a long, bright future ahead for him. But is there anybody else from your managing history that you'd look at and you're like, man, I didn't think that person would make it, or I'm really happy for this individual that he broke through and made a go of it.
Um, yeah, there's always a player or two that you might miss on because, especially at A ball,
Mhm.
when you get to Double A and Triple A, there's times where you go, okay, there's a lot of guys that are fringy type guys, um, but the first team, like I said, that I was fortunate enough to manage had Miguel Cabrera on it.
Yeah.
And then seeing with Boston, the group of players that came through, like Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts. But people see these players and they go, wow, they've been bulletproof. They've been good the whole time. That's not the case. These players, all of us, we have insecurities, we have doubts, we have failures. And to watch a player like Mookie, who has a heart of gold and turn out into the star that he's turned into, and love watching cases like that. But anytime that there's a guy that's a major leaguer, it's a victory. Hopefully it can be a sustainable career, but the guys that help you win championships, those are the ones that you really love to watch develop.
I love that mention of Mookie because I've met him once, like not personally, but he was just a couple of feet away from me, and I was like, he's not that big.
No.
So when you're looking at size, I know Jose Altuve gets pointed out in the same way or whatever, but there's a lot of good that comes out of those players having so much success because every kid in playing ball in the fields now knows that it's possible and is, if you put the work in, you have the talents and you get lucky enough, then you're going to get found and your talent will be evident and show up in the game. So that's great. That pretty much answers all my questions. I think Mark and I have talked to a lot of Rays individuals over the years and players alike. They always, always, always rave about the managers, the coaches that they have. It doesn't matter who it was. I might have talked to maybe 40 or 50 different prospects that have come through the race system, and there isn't one that hasn't had the glowing praise of the guys that the Rays put in charge of their system. So, you know, I think that the way that this interview has gone today is just highlights all of that in a nutshell. Is that it just comes across as high quality individuals that want to make higher quality players, and that's great to see. So thanks for joining us today. I appreciate your time a lot.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been good.
It's been a pleasure having you here, Kevin. Thank you very much, buddy, and keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All righty. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right. Well, that was a great interview with Mr. Kevin Boles, the manager of the Montgomery Biscuits, the Double A team of the Rays organization. And as you heard, what Matt was asking, Jermaine was asking a lot of good questions here, and we've got some good answers. We hope you enjoyed that. But I can't let it pass. I got to tell you, Matt, this week has been amazing. I wrote down a note that I looked out at the outfield the other day, and I think it was three of the outfielders, or at least three people on the team, had come from the Biscuits. Is it Meisner and Aranda and what's the other guy's name? Simpson. Is that right?
Chandler. We're gonna have to come up with a nickname for Chandler at some point, and even the other guys. We'll get to work on nicknaming these guys because they're a lot of fun to watch.
They are indeed. It has been a great week. We dug out of that 500 hole and we're moving back up in the AL East, and we've been back home. I got to tell you, I'm waiting for a day game every time they're playing here in town because the other teams haven't figured out the sun. The Rays takes on a whole other concept for when the visitors come in town.
I've heard a lot about this swirling wind at Steinbrenner Field, and I don't know, like, you have to see it to believe it, but it seems like there's never a comfortable pop out. They're always shifting around, and as I think it's more of a Rays fan centric thing because we're not used to watching the Rays play outdoor games, so we're trop vent centric, right? Everything goes up and then comes down linear, right? It's yeah. So.
Well, and then the George Sandberg Field not having a second tier back there allows the wind to come in even more at a closer range. But yeah, going from no wind from the trop to what they've got there is a whole different thing. It was interesting, I guess, probably maybe a little bit more than a week ago about the whole deal of rolling out the tarps for the first time in Tampa Bay Rays history. And I thought, okay, Dwayne, we've got all the rest of them. I said, make the most of it. Sure, go ahead. I know we got time to kill since it's going on, but geez, Manise. But it's been exciting. The wind. I don't know if you saw the game, the last couple of games, but when it was really windy, I don't think it was last night, the night before or day before, they had. I love graphics on the screen about where the balls are going, but it wasn't the ball they were measuring. They were measuring the amount of wind coming in from left field and right field and center field. And if you went to right field, it might have been 41 miles per hour coming back at you. If you hit it to left field, there's only winds against you about 1 mile per hour. And it was like, oh my gosh, is that a whole metric we're adding to StatCast?
So I think what Kevin Cash should do then is before he hands in the lineup card, get one of those, the direction twirling things there
Yeah, weather vane.
with the rooster at the top. Get one of those set up in center field, and then just look at the wind direction, and then a couple of wind socks from the airport, right? And then just say, okay, well, strategically, based on what the winds are doing, I'm gonna set my lineup up like this. No, it's kind of crazy when you do have to wonder a lot of times, statistically speaking, if somebody could come up with a metric that calculated how many weather impact events a player had to his benefit or against his benefit, that would be an outstanding stat. And I don't know how you would measure it. But today, with technology being what it is, yeah, maybe it's possible. Fangraphs should get on that, I think. We'll call it the StatCast WX, like weather.
It, it'll
Weather.
be it'll be another thing FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, whatever can put into the betting. I mean, you can bet on so many different things in a game these days. It's like, good gravy.
Isn't that an interesting comment he made about the betting?
Yeah.
And that's somebody that, if you're involved in double A and you make that kind of comment, it means that people are talking about it. It's on people's minds. And I have to believe that some of the players are mentioning that to the managers and the coaches and saying, there's things going on here that may not be kosher. And it's an intriguing question. I thought of you right away because I know the betting is your favorite sport.
Yeah.
Every day, thousands of Mark's dollars are floating around on games, and I thought it was a really interesting comment.
It was. And, it bothers me because I don't know if you heard about Lance McCullers Jr., who's from here.
Yes.
His father was in the game, and then Lance Jr. was playing for the Astros and arm problems, and he's been out for 2 years. He came back and had a terrible first game. And what came after that? Threats to his family, threats to him. And that's because probably somebody had money on the game. And how could you this, that, the other? And if that is part of the evil that can come from gambling of this game, get rid of it. Or at least find those people in something like that with Lance McCullers Jr. That should never, ever, ever happen.
But how do you control it? Like, this isn't something new. We've seen this in NCAA. I know it wasn't legal, but it was, done for years. Like, you had bookies, you had a whole, industry, subterranean industry built around it,
Yeah.
with a lot of people losing their livelihoods and losing their families and losing. This isn't anything new. So you're right. The pressure does build on people to actually get everything perfect. So in order to not have umpires' lives threatened and players' lives threatened and all this nonsense, it begs the question, at some point, will there need to be an adjustment made to gambling in general on sports? and some caps put in place just to protect everybody and also to protect the industry. Because at some point, you're going to get a crazy fan do something extremely stupid, and it's going to close Pandora's box, basically.
Yeah. It's definitely something I didn't want to see or hear, and that's for sure. And that sort of behavior, like I said, it has to be punished quickly, immediately, and thoroughly, and so that there's no incentive for anybody to even think about doing that sort of thing again. I'm, like I said, you know where I'm at on this, brother. I'm a no gambling kind of guy. So pitch pennies, $2 ticket to the Derby. That's it.
Back to the Rays, though. They're
Yeah.
second place in the division.
Oof.
Didn't we talk like 2 weeks ago where we were like, all right, sell everybody?
Yeah. Yeah. My gosh. Well, let's face it. I mean, a few things changed. Josh Lowe came back. I don't think he was necessarily fully back at that point. And my gosh, it has been hot. I think last night everybody got a hit. I looked on that list on the box. I said, "Wow!"
Five
And
got on base twice safely. So got
geez.
either 2 hits or a hit and a walk. So very productive.
And then the day before, Taylor Walls has a hit. Rortvedt gets 2 RBIs. Yeah.
Blew my mind. No, it's great to see. I'm happy for him. Very happy.
But it was interesting as much we talked about the wind and out in right field and left field, the difference. To me, I had forgotten how limited the foul area is still inside the park there. I mean, you've got a line and you got maybe a foot before you're outside of the fair play range. And oh my gosh, between the sun and everything else, and you see these poor souls in the opposition trying to catch the ball or shifting back and forth because the wind's moving it. It was a different kind of game. It was a bit of a circus.
Should there be a minimum to the foul lines? Like, should there be like, I don't know, let's say 8 feet, right? 8 foot minimum. So at least the guys, have to make the play and get a safe chance of making it. Because it seems to me like it's a career-ending scenario in some cases
Oh
where,
yeah.
they're looking to get crushed at the fence sometimes.
I mean, we need to get OSHA out there and put this thing together. There's no doubt about it. But I keep thinking back. My mind goes now and then to that image of Derek Jeter running over to catch the fly ball, but I think I don't know if it was a tarp there he had just as he's running over and half of his body's out of the field to catch that ball. It's like, well, if you had truly well designated lines and you had 8, 10 feet, yeah, I think that's reasonable.
What if we put all the outfield fences at 5 feet and allowed them to leap up from the top after they jump onto the top of the fence, right? And then the spectacular plays that would come from that, Mark. All the players landing like full body, like body surfing into the crowd. Like that would be amazing.
It's listen again. Put it all in a letter. We're sending it to Rob Manfred. The man we love so much. And but no, it has been an exciting week for the Rays and for all of us as fans to see the kind of performance they had. Like I said, I don't know if everybody on. I know, like I said yesterday, everybody had a hit, and I think most everybody had a hit or a walk the day before, and it's just been amazing to watch that much activity offensively with the team. They seem to be gelling more and more every day. And I don't have it in front of me, Matt, but the lineup we had yesterday, I don't know if we had more than just the 9 players for the whole time, or if there was actually a 10th who came in sometime for a substitution. But they stayed with a solid group of people on the field yesterday.
Yeah, and the consistent playing time, I think, is benefiting those that are still there. And it begs the question. So now we're getting into that uncomfortable conversation, right? So the other thing that happened yesterday is you had Hassan Kim playing in AAA. He managed a hit and a stolen base. He looked really solid on the field. So you've got him there. You've got Jake Mangum also in AAA. So 2 guys, right, looking to get their roster spots. And then you have Johnny DeLuca, who's still in the FCL, but shouldn't be too much longer before he goes to AAA. So three position players looking to get their roster spots back. So when you look at the lineup in general, like from yesterday, and you're wondering, okay, well, whose spots are they taking? First of all, we know Ha-Seong Kim is getting paid $29 million over 2 years. They're not going to hold back on sending somebody down. So he's getting a spot no matter what. The other two, however, have options. So I don't know. Like Cam Meisner has looked extremely comfortable in the outfield. Jose Caballero has a lot of versatility that's useful, and he's also a right-handed bat for the outfield. You know, how do they view him compared to Johnny DeLuca? Uh, it's a question. So then you have, if Awesome Kim is going to be there and taking up a lot of infield time, is there enough room for Curtis Mead? Is there enough room for Taylor Walls? And all of them have options. So you're in that position where you have flexibility at least to send people down. You don't have to pass them through waivers, which is great. But there's going to be some broken hearts and some guys looking to earn it back. And is going to have an excellent team coming up the next couple of weeks at least. Uh,
It is interesting, and as you're saying, so my mind keeps going back to the biscuits and what Kevin is seeing with those young people, fighting to get up, and they're seeing all this activity. If you're a double A and you're seeing all this activity between the major league and the triple A, he's got to say, man, I got to work harder. I got to do something to establish myself because, wow.
that doggy dog thing comes into play, right?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't matter how hot your start is or how hot you think you are and how well you're doing, you've got to keep being consistent because you never know when that little opening in that hole in that position is going to come up and you're going to be able to make that leap because they're not, I think the Rays are not alone in this, but they hate sending guys to AAA and then sending them back to AA. Like if they can avoid that so that you're always progressing forward, they love it. I think there's only a few players I can think of recently that have made that jump back and forth, and that's Drew Baker in the outfield, and a couple of catchers that have kind of made the jump up and back. Yeah, it's weird how that transition normally happens. So he's right. Once you get that AAA time, you're pretty much, I don't want to say you're a golden boy and you'll be there forever, because no, you're not. But it's definitely the opening that might be the hardest one for a player to get.
It's going to be, again, interesting to see a lot of these guys coming up. I know watching a little bit of the Biscuits, Homer Bush Jr. Oh my gosh. And he made me think of Chandler Simpson because he looks like he had a lot of speed.
Nice.
And that's going to be somebody to watch as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. It's interesting where we've talked about before families in baseball. Kevin, he's been a manager now for 25 years. His father was manager with the Marlins and others as well. And if you look at Homer Bush Jr., you see that there was Homer Bush who had played the game. And it's interesting seeing the families that progress in the game, but we'll see how he does as well. Let's see who else we got on the Rays right now. Let's see, Masner. We talked about him. And what about Jansen? What about how's
That bat is so welcome to see, so I took a look at the last 14 days, right, for the
yeah.
Rays. Because that's really when they seem to have transitioned into this hot streak and this more productive kind of lineup. And their isolated power is what stood out to me as finally becoming major league, maybe top third, right?
Right.
So I think it was somewhere over 270. So he's a big part of that because he's done a lot of damage over the last few weeks. And I don't know if it's because they started playing the Jays and it woke him up, but he's definitely getting more comfortable. You're talking about that comfort factor between one another. And both those catchers have to do a lot of homework, to get everything set in this place with a lot of new relievers and starters that they may not have worked with as often as they would have liked. So it's nice to see Danny has some success, and now you're talking about that consistency that Kevin was talking about before. Danny will provide that offensively going forward. So that's something that the Rays have lacked so much since Mike Zunino left them from the catching position. So what we saw yesterday was a good example where the bottom of the lineup was very productive. And if they can keep doing that with
Yep.
Ha-Seong Kim coming in and a lot of other guys and be tough at bats all the way through the lineup, they're going to wear guys down and get to the relievers a lot quicker. So that's why I kept saying if the Rays hang around, Mark, we don't know where they're going to end up. And somewhere behind them is Shane McClanahan just sweetening up that pot and going, I can jump in whenever I want. Sort of like playing double dutch and going, okay, I'm in. Yeah.
Oh gosh. No, as Rays fans, we got a lot of things to be happy about this year. You may not be happy about a game or even the record at any one point, but as far as just watching some great baseball, and certainly this past week, it has been fun. I am a little concerned about where some of these guys will wind up. Johnny DeLuca, if everybody else is already in place and they're doing well, it's going to be harder to bring him back in. And I don't know. Go ahead.
Two teams that are looking for outfielders, Mark, I'll mention quickly, is just the Padres and the Reds. They're both very thin. So I could see the Rays, and the Rays have dealt with both of those teams recently. Really good trading rapport with the Padres, but Terry Francona is in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So if he whispers something in Kevin's ear about a certain player, may or may not happen. They've been honest to one another in the past, especially when he was with the Guardians / Indians, and that's how we ended up with Yandy Diaz and Harold Ramirez and a bunch of other guys that Terry Francona had promoted to Kevin and the Rays. So I would not be surprised to see a deal come to fruition between one of those two teams in the Rays.
I'll be interested to watch it too, because I kept watching, the Guardians over time. Said, well, we've done some deals with them, and it wouldn't have been a surprise for some. But now that Francona is there in Cincinnati, we'll see what comes. Anyway, well, that's about all I got. Is there anything else you want to hit, brother?
Just want to mention every single Rays affiliate and the Rays are above 500 except for one, the Charleston River Dogs. There are 5 games under 500. I think, within the next 2 weeks, they may be able to get themselves above that. But the Rays are chugging on all cylinders throughout the organization. The draft is only a month and a half away, and there's a lot of promise. Like we talked to Kevin and all the guys that were mentioned. The Rays have a significant amount of talent. They have some good fortunes recently. Like every Rays fan should be in a very, very happy place right now, and enjoying this season more than they probably thought they would. Get themselves out to the park, start calling your counselors and telling them that you want them to purchase Steinbrenner Field outright and build a new stadium there and make your voice heard. That's my recommendation to them.
Well, thank you. And I think I should put that up as a sign. What is it? Here to stay. Put it.
Oh, don't do that. No, the Oakland A's had that slogan. No, don't use that slogan again. No. Like I said, you're better off going to lick the door handles.
All right. I told you I'd do it. So anyway. Well, Matt, thanks again, brother. It's always fun chatting about the Rays with you. And special thanks to Kevin Boles for taking some time with us today and giving us a little bit more insight about the Montgomery Biscuits and also what it's like, in AA ball overall. So a lot of fun. So thank you very much. Thank you, Matt.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure, Mark.
All righty. Thanks again, folks. And we will be talking with you again real soon.
You have been listening to Baseball Biz on Deck with a visit from Kevin Boles, the manager of the Montgomery Biscuits, the AA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. Just a reminder, you can find Matt at matgermain.bsky.social. That's at mattgermain.bsky.social or Mark at baseballbizondeck.bsky.social. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.
Raise up!